Thank you, everyone. Welcome to another Astral interview. And today I have with me Amyn Dahya. Amyn, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about your background. Tell us about where you grew up. Just a little bit of a background about yourself.
Sure. Well, I was born in East Africa. I grew up in the town of Mombasa in Kenya along the coast.
I was Tanzania.
Yeah, I was born in Tanzania in Arusha.
Yeah.
And then my parents moved to Mombasa when I was very young, maybe less than a couple of years old.
Right.
And, so I grew up in Mombasa. We lived on a farm outside of town. And I got involved with the farm and the family business at a very early age. I was only 11 at the time. But I learned a lot along the way, and the life in those days was everybody did everything. It's not kids do this, adults do that, etc. This is what's needed by the family. This is what's needed, and we do it. So it was a fun childhood in Kenya. Of course, living in a tropical climate and growing up in an environment with lots of friends, and it was a great formation period for me. And then in 1973, I went to the UK to do my further education. So I was in the UK for about 7 years, did my degree in chemical engineering, joined one of the British engineering firms, who then transferred me to Canada. And that's where I met my wife, my lovely wife. And well, our children were born there. And we lived in Canada for many years, then in the US, in Reno near Lake Tahoe. And then we moved to Spain, and we've been living in Spain and in the Middle East. And my work takes me everywhere because, my profession is very much involved in the environmental field.
Right.
And, I clean up.
So you're still quite involved in your work. It's not like you went 100% from your career to teaching spirituality.
No.
And so
For me, it was more there was a turning point in 1987.
Tell us about your
when I left my job with the engineering firm, and I decided to go on my own and start my own technology company. But my family had an import business, and to help them out briefly, I was visiting Kashmir in the Himalayas. And I really loved, when I first arrived there, I felt like I knew the place, I knew everything. And I'd never been there, never set foot there before. And so I spent about a week there.
So maybe elaborate a little bit. Elaborate a little bit on what you mean by you felt like you knew everything.
Well, there's a sense of familiarity. You arrive in a place, you've never lived there, and obviously one may interpret that could have been a past life. I think it's also more that we connect into I would say, the intelligence of what is there. Now, at that time, I didn't know all that. So I just stepped in, I go, I love this place. And then one day, my host, I said I wanted to visit the glaciers. And so my host organized a motorcycle with one of their people. And we went to a place called Pelgam, where the glaciers, like they melt, and there's this beautiful turquoise rivers, and it's really, really nice. We went there, spent the day there, and then on the way back, it was about 7 in the evening when we left the dirt road and got onto the main road to Srinagar. And all of a sudden, the mudguard of the bike came loose at 80 kilometers an hour, and it did a somersault. And I got thrown into the air. Now, I could see below me the bike had burst into flames, but everything happened so fast that I didn't. So
you had a near-death experience?
Sorry?
So you had a near-death experience?
I wouldn't call it that, no. So as I was out there, seeing this bike in flames, all of a sudden time stood still.
Okay.
And it was like this beautiful energy. Like I describe it as a pair of mother's hands, you know, with a lot of love, that just took me and placed me on the side of the road.
Wow.
And my head never touched the ground. I came out unscathed. And after that, from the very next day, my reality changed.
Right.
So I don't think it was near death. No, I think I was conscious very much so. I didn't see any of the things that people talk about. For me, it was very much time stood still, and
I've
there
had
was a shift in my
had a similar
consciousness.
experience
Yeah, there was a
where,
shift in my consciousness,
where I'm
basically.
about to fall, and it felt like a hand. I was in my apartment. I was all by myself, and I was falling. I could sense myself falling, and so I'm
Yeah,
almost like slow motion.
yeah,
And it was like a hand came in between my head and where my head was going to hit, which was a
yeah,
glass table. And it
yeah,
was almost like it came and took my head and pushed it out of the way so I don't hit the
yeah,
table.
yeah,
And I automatically had a knowing that it was my grandma.
yeah. Well, could
You
could
never
could
know,
be many
right?
things. Could be
Yeah,
many
you never
things.
know.
But this was for me a shift in consciousness, because the very next day, now remember, I was a successful young engineer, very arrogant guy, my way or the highway type of person. If it didn't make sense to me, you know, I'm not spending my time on it. And yet from the next day, I looked out of the hotel window and I see the trees and I see myself in the trees. And I see the gardener and I see myself as the gardener. And I, you know, that reality of oneness set in. And over time, you know, I became a very peaceful person. That arrogance all went out of the window, because when you realize the greater dimension of everything about you, you realize that you're as insignificant as a speck of dust, and yet
Right.
you are also the universe itself. So there's that dimension that basically puts you in a state of humility, but it's a humility that defines you at the core. And then over time, I began to wake up in the middle of the night and start writing, and I would get these beautiful inspirations, very poetic. And it was almost like I was downloading from the library of the universe, because, you know, we live in a very intelligent environment, a very intelligent universe. And I would write 30, 40 pages and then read and go, oh my God, did I write that? And if you look at my language, in my technical writing, engineers, we write boring stuff. But yet what I was writing here was poetic, beautiful insights. And then in 1995, when I was writing a chapter in my first book about the 10 stages of the soul, by this time, a lot of spiritual evolution had taken place. A lot of learning had occurred. And then when I was writing about the 10 stages of the soul, I reached a point where at the 10th stage, I'm asked to explain describe the 10 stages, which I did. But then I was asked to explain each one, and I said, I don't know. And I was told, you do know. You couldn't have come this far without knowing. And I said, I don't know. And then the
So
very next thing,
when you say you were told you don't know, when you were told you know and you said you don't know, who are
yeah,
you communicating with?
my higher self,
Okay.
the, you know, the infinite intelligence, I call it, of our creator, our source, my higher self.
And how do you
And
communicate with your higher self?
through thought, through
Okay.
thought. And it, you know, sometimes you communicate just by receiving thoughts. And in this particular case, because it was the first time I was experiencing something like this, it was quite intense. And then the next thing, I knew all about those stages. And so I wrote about each stage and I explained. And at that point, I was granted an understanding of how everything comes together, how we're
Okay.
all part of oneness. And that the only things that separate you from me is our physical bodies. And that, you know, we all have our roots in our creator, in our source, from where, so as a result, you know, if I hurt you, I'm hurting myself. That whole understanding that
Mm-hmm.
many of the scriptures teach about just came automatically. And the other thing during those moments was I was blessed with the ability to help people heal themselves,
Right.
not as their healer, but to help them heal
Heal
themselves.
themselves. I agree.
Because we all have that, self-correcting mechanism in our bodies, but
Right.
we've kind of stopped using it and become dependent on medications and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, I have the highest respect for medical science, and I think it's
Same,
done
yeah.
wonderful things. But I think
Absolutely.
at the same time, you can help yourself
Right.
together in parallel.
Right.
And so after having been given that gift, then I started, my wife and I, Karima and I, we started traveling globally, sharing this gift through, and we used to hold meditation sessions, and people would come. And I don't know if you participated in any of my sessions,
I
but
have not. I got introduced to you by my uncle.
Okay.
Nasher uncle, Nasher Kabani. He lives in
Mhm.
Burnaby, BC. And
Yeah.
he's like, you have to listen to this person's
Yeah.
videos. So I said,
Yeah.
okay, Nasher uncle, I'll listen to this person's videos.
So
And
that's where, in the healing, basically, we build that really sharp and powerful focus as a group. And groups have been from 3 to 5 people all the way to 3,500 people in an auditorium. But
wonderful.
when everyone unites in that one common thought and seek to heal themselves, this amazing things start to happen, because the body then takes on that charge of making itself better. And this approach defies a lot of medical odds, and yet they're not miracles, because at the end of the day, we all have this ability. And it's a question of, and I say in the healing sessions, look, I can pass you the spark in the meditation, but you convert it to a flame. So it's like I
Right.
can pass you the baton, but you finish the race. So don't depend on me.
Right.
You have to depend on yourself, because that's the only way you will empower yourself to
Right.
heal yourself. So that all came from that experience in '95. Then we traveled all over the world. We've had sessions everywhere. And to this day, and then during COVID, we couldn't travel. So in parallel, I was doing my work and doing this work. But this work has been always on a voluntary basis, never charged for anything. But it's a gift you're given to share. And that
Right.
was part of the reason I received that gift, was to share it.
Of course.
And then during COVID, we couldn't travel. And then I started getting requests saying, can you do something online?
On Zoom, yeah.
And so we started, and I guess it's been every Saturday since. So we
Wonderful.
have a lovely group of people from all over the world, and we all log in on a
Wonderful.
Saturday. And
How
I
many
either
people? How many people on your Zoom meetings,
on
approximately?
my Zoom, it goes anywhere. During the peak, we were at about 900. So it's between 250 to 900, depending on
Topic.
what we're doing.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, we then scale back from every Saturday. We, rather than have a webinar, and I pick on certain subjects that I'm inspired to share. And there'll be different aspects of living. There'll be different aspects of thinking, dealing with rejection, dealing with your emotions. But this stuff just I was inspired with, so I share it. But then we started doing practical meditations every other week. So people come, they log on. I do a guided meditation till everyone builds that focus, and then everyone's on their own and they're meditating. And it's a very peaceful experience. So my journey has been a combination of science, environmental work, building projects, drinking water, wastewater purification, and at the same time working to share this gift and share knowledge with our fellow beings.
Right. Your story somewhat reminded me of, I don't know if you know who Daniel Brinkley is. I mean, it's a totally different story, but similar in that, if you watched his movie, it's called Saved by the Light. His first book is called Saved by the Light.
I think I might have, yes.
Yeah, he's an arrogant fellow who has an actual near-death experience, whatever you want to call it. And it knocks him out of his reality, and he realizes that there's more to things than just.
Yeah. It's transformational. Whatever happens during those moments, that being that is within you has always been there, but it takes something to wake you up.
Right.
And all of a sudden you realize that actually I've been living in my material consciousness, which is very limited all this time. And the minute you start living with both your material consciousness and your spiritual self, now your life gains a much deeper meaning. Your insights are deeper. Wisdom finds its way with you. And so I think living with that balance has been something that, I'm very grateful for having been able to at least learn about, achieve to some extent. I'm sure we never achieve it all. And also share with people the importance of this and the how-to part, because you can't just present a concept, you have to also present the practical.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. So you mentioned your book. Can you tell us the title of your book and give us a little summary about your book?
Yeah,
I understand it's got the 10 stages of soul, maybe a little bit about it to entice people to go and get it.
Sure. Now, this was my first book. Actually, it's going to be republished. We ran out and we're now doing it all in ebook format. But the first book was called Reflections from the Origin. So what would happen is every time I receive, I write something, I would just put it together, and it's a compilation of all those writings. Right. And one of those was the 10 stages of the soul. But those writings very much take the form of short stories, parables, insights. The language is simple so that it can be understood by people of all ages. So my first book was Reflections from the Origin. And then some of the other parables alone became parables from the origin, which is something, again, children love, adults love. And you read a parable, the best part about learning through stories is that you allow the reader to use his or her imagination to interpret. So rather than say to the person, it's this, you carry them through the experience and let them take from it what they wish, And then after that, I gave a lecture in South Africa on the 10 stages of the soul. And someone asked Karima after the lecture, that on the 8th stage is the stage of zero conflict. It's the stage of the orchestra. And so I asked Karima, how does one achieve zero conflict? And so we were sitting at Zurich airport and after flying overnight, and she said, well, this guy asked this question. And I said, well, maybe I should write a book about it. And once I said that, it started flowing.
Of course.
And so I wrote a book called Towards Zero Conflict, which I think the whole manuscript was downloaded in less than 30 days.
Wow.
And then the publication takes longer. But so then Towards Zero Conflict is basically a book that has 18 stories. But each story is of a dimension of conflict. And as you read it, you become one of the characters. If it invokes certain emotions in you that are of a strong nature, then you know that that could be one of your hidden conflicts. Because if someone tells you these are your conflicts, none of us will accept them. But if we feel that, wow, that I really can identify with that or that. So you go through the stories, you learn about the conflicts, and then there is seeds of resolution, which are meditative thoughts. So for example, one of the stories is on judgmentalism. Right. And how we are all very quick to judge people. And we cause so much pain and misery in our lives and the lives of others. And yet judgment, if you are a judgmental person, you don't know you are one. So the seeds of resolution were that every human being is like a piece of paper. One side is blank, and in the other side is all the truth written about the person. But the side we see is the blank side. Yet we all profess to think we know what's written behind. We don't. And so as you practice that affirmation, the next time you pass judgment, you'll see that paper appear before you and you go, I'm doing that. So this book takes you on a journey of self-realization of your conflicts. Right. Only you know, because it's very private. but the seeds of resolution help you overcome them. So that was my third book. And then I wrote books of short daily inspirations. You know, you open any page and it speaks to you, and you read and you go, whoa, but I'm going through this right now. It's advice for me. And so I wrote 3 of those books.
Wonderful.
And then my last book.
Kind of like the chicken soup for the soul kind of thing.
Yeah, but those are stories. These are like
stories.
short, you can read it in 60 seconds.
Right.
But it gives you a message, and then you start thinking about it. And I've had a lot of feedback from readers. They go, just I open a page at random, and then what it says is what I'm thinking of, or it's a question I'm trying to resolve. So you get that help, that
intuition,
food for thought from the universe.
Right.
So I have 3 of those, and then the last book is called Invoked, and it's a story about. It's written in the year 600 AD. Wow. In the Arabian desert, and it was like I was seeing the life then through the eyes of a 13-year-old young girl who is a courtesan from a very poor family. And it's a story about human transformation. And it shows how cruel people were, how cruel the world was, because in the absence of ethics, in the absence, I mean, it was a barbaric way of life.
Right.
And then, you know, they travel to Abyssinia, and she learns about the Christian faith from her hosts. And then the Middle East, the Arabian desert, then Islam comes there, and then she is exposed to Judaism. But she is, remember, an uneducated, illiterate girl. So wherever she went with the person she was in love with, you know, she was exposed to all these bits and pieces of knowledge that really inspired her to become a great leader. But it takes you to that whole story of human transformation, and it shows you how when light comes to darkness, how quickly darkness disappears.
Right.
You can have a totally dark room and you light one little bulb and it's gone.
Yeah.
And so that was the theme of that book. And now I'm in the process of writing one, which hopefully might take me a little while, but it's a fun book on my conversation with my higher self. So we'll see.
Wonderful. Well, you've gotten quite a few books out there now, and we'll share your books with your interview when we do your profile for you, and hopefully help you get a few more out there. But tell us now a little bit about what somebody would expect in your webinar.
The webinars are of 2. We have 3 types of webinars. Okay. So the first ones were master classes where I teach meditation. But again, I don't teach meditation just as a technique. We start with understanding the broader principles of why we should meditate. What are the basis of meditation? And I use stories and anecdotes to kind of explain how you gather your thoughts and come to that level where you are able to contemplate, go into stillness, go into silence, go to the higher level of oneness. So the master classes, I think I did about 5 of them, and they basically teach you how to meditate. And also there's guided meditation. So if you want to learn how to focus, you just listen to one of those classes, or there are audios as well. And some of them are as short as 7 to 10 minutes where you listen. It puts you in that frame of mind of pure focus, and you can then go forward. So because our minds are always noisy and full of clutter. So there's meditation master classes. Then we do once a month a meditation an event called Sharing Hope. So that's the time where everybody comes together. And the purpose of Sharing Hope is that we all go into a meditation for the benefit of all those in the world who are sick, who are suffering, who are grieving. So it's very much our way of serving. And people send in prayer requests. And so, you know, we were quite a nice group that's very dedicated to, and it's a completely unselfish process, but very spiritually rewarding, because you're out there really sending a part of yourself to your fellow beings whom you may never meet, never know, but you're sending something very positive from yourself to them. So sharing hope we do once a month. We do one practical meditation session once a month, which is, I'll guide the start of the meditation for the first 15 minutes or so. When everyone's reached that complete state of pure focus, we just go. And each one takes his or her own time. Some sit in focus for 1 hour, some little shorter, And then I have the reflections on the go, where I pick a subject. So once a month, I pick a subject or an insight on a given part of life that is of real importance to us. Like, how do you deal with rejection, for example? What is your inner voice? Why you should listen to your inner voice. And I give examples of, and why it is so easy to drown that voice, which is really there to guide you. So there's forgiveness, a series on forgiveness. So these elements that if you take them on board, you are able to enhance your well-being. You're able to find more emotional peace and happiness. Conflict starts going away, because one of the things I also teach is the fact that you can't govern the actions of others, but you can govern your reaction. And if you are able to govern your reaction, conflict disappears. So that's the reflections on the Go series. Then I did 10 master classes on the superconscious mind, because, we only use 12% to 15% of our true mental capacity. So where is the balance 85? And that's really,
I was reading an article actually that says that whole theory is wrong. That's not true, that we only use 10 or 12%.
Okay.
We use more than 10 or 12%, and what we do is we use different parts of our brain, but we never use all of it at any given time.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But what I'm saying is that 10 and so 12 and 15% is which part of our minds that we truly apply. But in the 85, we all use a lot of it without being aware, because that's our superconscious state. That's where we are tapping into our higher intelligence. And so I did 10 classes on what the superconscious state is and how you work with it to basically engage yourself so that your mind is operating in totality. Again, the spiritual dimension, the material dimension, and that infinite intelligence. So did master classes on that. So, I have a YouTube channel. I think there's quite a few different videos on it. We have a website, and people go there frequently and they view. So all the webinars are basically, after that, we have a team that makes professional productions so that you don't just see me talking to you all the time. At least they become lively and they illustrate things better. So that's in a nutshell what we do on the webinars.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm sure the question is ringing in everyone's head right now. What are the 10 stages of the soul? Do you want to summarize those a little bit?
Well, I'll share the metaphorical journey with you in a very concise form, but I wrote it because I was experiencing as I was writing, and I was walking down an old Arabian street. And I know it's Arabian because of the architecture. And I reached this facade, which has cobwebs on it along the door. So I know that no one's been in there in a long time. And something makes me push that door open. And when I look in, I can see a few steps, but then it's just dark. And my first reaction is turn around and run. But somehow I step in. And when I get onto the first step, I hear the sounds of a marketplace. There's people, animals, noise, laughter, shouting, but it's coming from the walls. So there's a staircase and there's walls. I don't see anything, but I hear this marketplace lively as if I'm right in the middle of it. And so I'm thinking, where are these people? What is this? but I have no clue what's going on. So I take a step up, and as soon as I take the second step, the sounds stop. But when I climb 3 more steps, I hear the sound of a dripping tap. So there's a bucket, water dripping in this bucket with great consistency. And it's like that bucket is almost all around me, and the dripping sound is just going through me. And then I take 3 more steps, because as soon as I leave that stage, the dropping stops, and I get to the 3rd stage, and I hear a grandfather clock ticking. It's like I'm in that clock. It's just ticking with constant regularity. And then 3 steps further, I get to the 4th stage. And in the 4th stage, I hear children playing in the playground, innocence, laughter, that pure, innocent happiness all around me, coming from the walls. Can't see anything. Now I look ahead of me, and being the scientist I am, I start counting the steps. And I reach 66 steps, and then I can't see any further. So I said, okay, let's see what I'm going to climb these steps. I go 3 steps further to the 5th stage. In the 5th stage, it's like I hear the sounds of a powerful waterfall, and I'm right there, and it's almost as if the waterfall is crashing into me. But I feel its energy, but I don't see it. I count the steps ahead, and there's still 66. Hasn't changed. Then I go from the 5th to the 6th stage, and I hear the sounds of monks in a temple chanting. Beautiful voices. It's like, they sounded like Buddhist monks. And there I am in this temple with these monks chanting, not having a clue about what's going on. And then I climb 3 more steps to the 7th stage. And there I hear the sounds of water coming ashore at a beach, and palm trees rustling, and really beautiful, peaceful, calming sounds. And that's the 7th stage. I look ahead, and there's still 66 steps. I look behind, I cannot go back. It's only one way, and that's forward. So then I go from the 7th to the 8th stage, climb 3 more steps, and that's where I hear the most beautiful orchestra I've ever heard. It's not music I've ever heard in this world, but every instrument is in perfect harmony. Not a single bit is missed. And I think, wow, I just want to stay here and listen to this music. It's so beautiful. But then I move on from the orchestra. I take 3 more steps, and I reach the 9th stage. The 9th stage, it feels like I'm underneath the ocean. There's just this powerful background noise of water, but something that's underwater. And now the orchestra is still playing. Before, from 1 to 7, every time you left a stage, the sound went away. Here, the orchestra is still playing. And I think, what is this? And deep in the bed of the ocean, music. And then I climb 3 more steps to the 10th stage. The 10th stage, I hear the sounds of dolphins singing, beautiful, very lovely. But the orchestra is still playing, and the sound of the water is still there. And I look ahead of me. Now at the end of the 66 steps, there's a door. And the door is ajar, and behind the door is what I call a light. Something very luminous. But imagine if there's a dark staircase and you open a door, you'd expect the light to fill the staircase. This one doesn't.
Right.
And that's when, I hear this amazing, powerful inner voice that says, you've come up to the 10 stages, now explain what they mean. And I said, I don't know. And I was asked second time, and I was beginning to get worried. I said, I don't know. And then the third time I was told, you do know, and now relate it. And it was like someone lifted a veil, and now I knew each of the stages fully.
Wow.
And what I related was that the first stage, when I stepped in, was a marketplace. It was a stage of the marketplace. That's the world I've come from, my material world. Thousands of events, noise, people, action. The first stage represents the world I've come from. The second stage is that my focus narrows down from these thousands of events and noises down to a singular event, which is the dripping tap. So now my focus is down to one thought. And why the water? Why the dripping tap? Because water is the essence of life. So I narrowed down to the essence of my life in the second stage. And then in the third stage, when I'm in the grandfather clock, it's still singular focus, like the second stage, but now the ticking of the clock represents time, and time is unseen. So I've gone from the seen to the unseen in the third stage. Then in the fourth stage, having reached that level of the unseen, in the fourth stage, I hear the children playing in the playground. Is almost like a new birth for me, a new emergence of myself, like a child. And it's that stage where I'm now rising as a being of a different state. And that's my childhood. And then from the fourth to the fifth stage is the waterfall. And now I'm right under the abundance of essence of life. And when water flows, it becomes pure. So I'm now in an abundance of purity. So second stage was the droplet. Now it's the entire waterfall. And I'm completely pure. And then after that, when I get to the sixth stage, I hear the monks chanting, because my body is that temple, but my inner self, my higher self, the voice, the first time I'm hearing the true sound of my inner voice. And that is the monks chanting. But I still have the body. And then I reach the seventh stage, which I call the stage of paradise, which is the beach, the palm trees, absolute tranquility, beauty. And this is a stage where, once you get to this stage, you feel like, wow, you don't want to go anywhere, you just want to stay there. But that's what I call the seventh stage, is the stage of paradise. And then I'm told that a lot of...
Now I could listen. That's how I feel right now. I feel like I want to stay here and listen to you forever.
So then I'm told that, you've come up to the seventh stage, and all the seven, 1 to 7, are distinct. Now you're going to 8, 9, and 10, which are not distinct, they're fused. Explain why. And so I say that I go from the 7th to the 8th stage. And I'm also told that a lot of people on their journey, their souls, they get to 7, and they're really happy to be there. But the 8, 9, and 10 are one of the most difficult ones. And the 8th stage is that orchestra, which is in perfect harmony, which is the stage of zero conflict. Now, as humans, we cannot imagine zero conflict. We all have conflict. So it's a stage that is very difficult to cross. Takes a lot of work, takes a lot of meditation, takes a lot of inner work. But that harmony of that orchestra shows that every element of my being is now in complete harmony in the absence of conflict. And then from there you go to the 9th stage, which is at the bottom of the ocean. So now I started on the 2nd stage as the droplet, then the waterfall, and now I am in the ocean itself. And my physical form is gone. I'm in the bottom of this ocean, and I am becoming the ocean now. And then the 10th stage is the dolphins, who are the monks of the ocean. So the 6th stage with the Buddhist monks chanting, 10th stage, it's the dolphins or the monks of the ocean. There's a lot more to it, but I'm just giving you a very short summary.
I can feel that.
And then I'm told, okay, now you can climb the stairs. And so I climb up the stairs, and when I cross that door, last words I hear are, you are no longer you, that's your fulfillment. And that's where we all seek to reach. And then, of course, there was learning that occurred there, which, I'm not at liberty to discuss. But that's where the healing came from. That's where, and so since that day, my life took on a new parallel purpose. On the one hand, it's work with the environment, work with healing of water, nature. But here was share this gift with people, share this knowledge with people.
Right.
And interestingly enough, right now, we're doing the masterclass series, which I just started in 2022, is about the 10 stages of the soul.
Oh,
So we
wonderful.
just did the first one. And I think in 2 more weeks, we will have the second one. But the second one starts at stage 1. The first one is introduction.
Right.
So those are the 10 stages of the soul. It's a metaphorical journey.
Mhm.
But as you think about it, as you meditate on each of the stages, you begin to identify yourself with certain features or certain stages. And what
Right.
it invokes in you is that motivation, that desire to ascend.
Right.
And one of my purposes is, in the webinars and the master classes, is that people who are interested in learning, I'm there very happy to share at least what I know.
Right. Right. And everyone's looking for something, and everyone's
Yes.
searching for themselves in whatever means they can.
Yes.
And some
Yes.
people are hiding in a corner, but know they're interested in this search, but they're still hiding. So different things attract different people. Different
Yeah.
people attract different people. There's different guides and different teachers out there for different personalities and characters. And we're all here to serve a purpose, and we're all here to help each other, ascend together. Let's put it that
True.
way.
Very true. Very true. And, each one of us reaches points in our lives where, our growth just begins to expand. And not to say that until then we haven't been growing, but it's almost like we've been building ourselves up for
Right.
that growth.
Right. And I believe everyone has these experiences. Some talk about them, some don't. Some we never hear about. People leave the planet before even sharing.
Yeah.
But I believe everyone has these experiences and
Yes.
these
Absolutely. Absolutely.
these wisdoms that they discover in their lives that hopefully, through some of these interviews I do, get shared with the rest of the world. And that's the
Yes.
purpose of these interviews is
Yes. Yes, indeed. And I think it's so important to share. I mean,
yeah.
What's the point of learning all this only to take it with you and not let it flow? So I admire people, who take the time to share what they've learned, and let the listener make up his or her own mind
Absolutely.
what they want to take from it. I like to stay very neutral in everything I teach. I don't try to push any one concept over the other. It's here it is. What are you comfortable with?
Right.
And I think there's a lot of people out in the world who are doing the same thing.
What about your own path? Has in your own teachings or learnings, do you have a teacher or somebody that you look up to for your learning, or do you feel that somebody was inspirational to you in your life to incite this journey that you're on and embarked on yourself?
Well, I think I learned the concepts of spirituality when I was quite young.
Right.
From my parents, from the community I was a part of, from all the all the knowledge that you pick up as a young person. But my parents had a significant influence in bringing me up with a certain degree of understanding. But I would say that over time, particularly after the accident and all the writings, I would say that the inspiration comes from within.
Right.
And it's inspiration that I think reaches everybody,
Right.
guides all those who want to draw from it. And I think that part of it is my upbringing, my belief system. Part of it is, what I gained, post that accident. it's a combination of many things.
Right.
I don't think that there is a singular direction. I think that spiritually we grow
Mhm.
lateral and forward as opposed to directional. And
Right.
everybody plays a part in it. Even someone who comes into your life who challenges you, gives you a really
Absolutely.
hard time, but they are building
Absolutely.
you if only you can recognize that they are
Yeah.
there to give
Yeah.
you a gift to
Yeah,
better yourself.
absolutely. I truly believe that every person that enters your life is a teacher, and they're
Yes,
there to incite a new skill in you or a new learning in you that
yes,
wasn't there before, and you called them in the first place. You
yes,
requested it somehow, some way
yeah,
in your own asking of what you wanted to receive.
sure. I mean, how do you learn true forgiveness unless you've experienced its pains of things that have come your way or things that you've done? It has to come to you through people, through events. But those are your teachers, not people you sit there and despise. You say, thank you, okay, I learned my lesson, we move on. But they bring
Yes,
some very hard lessons.
yes,
And if you can react one of two ways. You can become bitter and hate, then you miss the point, at least
right,
of that encounter. You might
right,
pick some other one.
yeah.
But, I think that everybody brings us that gift of experience. In one of my books, I have a dedication which says that the origin or our creator is light, and because all my teachings are universal. So is light. Light brings life. Life brings experience. Experience brings knowledge, and knowledge is light, and that's the full circle of
The
life.
whole circle.
So
Wow.
every day, how do you get experience? Through others, through
Right,
events. So
right.
everyone is there as your teacher.
Yeah, absolutely.
you know?
There's no event in your life that isn't going to assist in your quote unquote ascension or enlightenment.
Sure, sure.
Yeah. So here, let's ask now, just before we come to a close, um, if you have this audience in front of you, what advice do you have for them? What what path should they take? What what special words do you have that can encourage them to search further or go on this journey of self realization?
I think what I would say is that now is the best time to recognize that we have two key dimensions to to ourselves: the material dimension and the spiritual. It doesn't have to be religion based. Spiritual is non-denominational, it's universal. You can even approach your higher self from a scientific point of view, you know. But recognize that there is a greater dimension to you, and then there is the material dimension. We have all, because of the challenges that we have gone through, and life is becoming so fast and communication is so quick, that we are all so consumed. I remember that when many years ago, the cell phone wasn't there. Now I
Mhm.
go to a bathroom in an airport and I hear people talking, even they don't even have silence in their toilets. Okay. So we have devices and technologies that have laid claim to our entire being and our entire consciousness. And we get so consumed, and every year, when the year comes to an end, we go, wow, that year passed so quickly. But that means you weren't living. Because if you were, time's still flowing at the same pace, but you are really engrossed. So my suggestion is that to start thinking about the greater aspects of yourself, to start reading, to start learning, to start meditating, contemplating. And I'm not talking about meditating in any given ritualistic way. Just contemplate these things. And what happens is the minute you awaken that side of yourself, you find that now both these key dimensions of you reach a point where they're working in sync. What does that do for you? Number one, it completely alters your reaction to conflict and challenges. You do not react as strongly and powerfully as you did. As a result, you reducing the amount of emotional pain and hurt in your life. You're gaining more peace. Number two, as you begin to live with both these dimensions, you recognize that every being in your life is an extension of you. So how you treat them, how you live with them. And I remember one of my recent webinars was on what is the one thing that anybody wants in this world is to feel relevant. Give them relevance. Don't make yourself the only relevant person. But all these things, these inspired things, come from that search of growth in that greater dimension of you. Not forsaking the material. I'm not saying leave this and go there. No, I'm saying bring that greater dimension into this scene. And I think that as we gain in that knowledge, as we grow, I think my advice would be take time every day to meditate, to have your own alone time to be at peace with yourself, learn how to declutter the mind, and just grow and find that, and you'll find your relationships start improving as well. You become a different person. And I think COVID kind of placed us all in that turning point, because that was one time where we were all locked up, we had nowhere to go. And that's when I found that, for example, we started our webinars and I realized just how much people needed and wanted to learn this. So in a way, yes, COVID did a lot of damage in many areas, but it also created a shift in us. And I'm saying now that we're coming out of it, let's not lose the point. Look, the environment, because of our high consumption lifestyle and travel, etc., we place less burden on the environment. Environment began to regenerate. In Malaga, we never saw dolphins in the marinas. Now they're there in the marinas. You know, things have changed in so many different ways, harshly and positively. And so let's take that lesson and say, okay, let's go forward with that balance and achieve a more enlightened state of living. Right. And that would be my one singular suggestion.
Wonderful. Yeah, when I think about it, like, yes, this thing has happened to change our lives a certain degree. There's always something happening to change our lives.
Yeah.
And everything, like, everything should be looked at something to incite a different outlook on our lives for us, right? Yes. Not just this one aspect that's happened. And when I think about it, yes, we've also come closer together in this time, yes, because we're spending more time with our own loved ones, which we hadn't before, because we're being almost forced to. And at the same time, there's people, rather than consider it a conflict, look for the gifts in this whole time too, right?
Correct.
And if we do that, it'll flow way more easier for us, and that flow is a sign to us that we're in the flow, right? Versus in a state of conflict.
Absolutely. So that would be my suggestion. Look, if people are interested, they can visit my YouTube channel.
Absolutely.
Our website. I'm on Instagram, Facebook.
Yeah, you'll give me all those
regularly.
We'll put them in the video for you when you give me all that.
Yeah.
And
hey, wish everybody all the very best and stay blessed always.
Excellent. Thank you, Amyn. Thank you. I really enjoyed this interview.
Thank you, Sharon.
Discussing various subjects with you, and hopefully we can do this again.
Take care. Thanks a lot. God bless.
God bless.
Bye.
Okay, I'm going to stop recording.